Hello, wild wisdom warriors from around the world. Hello, my dear shamans everywhere. Hello, YouTube. This is Lily Kolosova. This is my life journals. Today is Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to my journals. And today is January 28th, 2020. So I want to talk today about fathers because it's the day that my dad died 2 years ago. On this date, in 2018, he was 102 years old. And so I held up here his autobiography right there that he wrote. This is a very interesting book that he left. Um, so, anyway, a lot of names in this book. But anyway, so I want to talk today a little bit about, fathers and the all of these things that because I talk, you guys know, I talk a lot about my dad and how he inspired me to be a shaman, to how if it wasn't for him or for his shamanic experiences or his shamanic healing that he himself had received, and well, not received, that he would attain a healing with nature. And I've talked about how he had done that with shamans that told him that the nature's answer to his problems would be bees, and he didn't know how it's all gonna play out. Yeah, Natasha, AB, the most rarest blood type. So anyway, so he was healed through the nature, the very sort of. And so me being very young and still being in that, in that unbroken mind. My mind was protected, and partially it was because, and I'm in gratitude today, and this is why I'm going to speak in honor of him, because he's the one who protected me from them breaking my mind. So ultimately, because he had healed himself. And so ultimately, this is why I was able to retain my abilities that I have, that God-given abilities of inside and gnosis within, of, of true sort of true Christianity. That is true, really. And it really, I don't want to talk about that, but this is, if you ask about what my dad was, who he was, he knew that's what it was. Yes, Russian intelligence. Amy, yes. There is a picture here of him in his KGB uniform. But I'm not going to be showing it. Yeah, he put a few pictures in here in his autobiography. So anyway, what I wanted to, because see, when I was born, he was 54. Okay? So think about that. He was in his wisdom age. And even here on this pictures, you guys see, he's got, seems like an eye here. That's photoshopped. He was actually blind on one eye, just like Odin. So I do have my father as an Odin, even looking like Odin here in this life. So I guess universe had to give me all the signs. So here I am honoring him. He was amazing. And the stories that he was telling us, oh my God, it's just everything through the stories. And so this is how I trace back all the way through everything. And he traced back all the way in this book to all the way where the humanity actually came from, to where the place is actually a physical place. So anyway, so it's just, I don't know. I didn't even know if I was going to come on and do this today. But it was Tuesday and I was going to, do this on Tuesdays and Fridays. So here I am. I'm just going to talk a little bit about, so if you guys just thank you for being here, everyone. Amy, Natasha, Comfort, great for you to join. Thank you, Natasha. Thanks, Amy. Oh, you guys, it's just, my dad was such a, he was the funniest guy in the whole world. So I never really knew him in that, during all of that state when all of the stuff that he later passed on to me. And like I said, most of the really deep stuff what happened in Siberia and gulags and communists, and how, when, who, all of that. See, Amy, that the thing is, you can't. It's not as like KGB is. I mean, I've said it before. He was taken in. It's not like, communist stuff. It's not like, just, you go and work for them. Oh, you must be with them. It's either death or you serve during the occupation of Communist Party. And so that's exactly what they do. And so usually what happens is then a lot of times, and this is what happens in my dad case, is that they come in and they kill the parents and take the children into gulag. So there was a lot of that. So there's a lot of things. So it's kind of interesting at what's unfolding with everything. To sort of how the history, even of that side of the world today, there's so much more truth that is known about what's been happening, but there is so much still underneath. Like, I don't know if you guys ever seen like the iceberg, just the tip of the iceberg is just above the water. So this is like what I said in my last journal. There is only just this tip of the iceberg that we see on the top for that side of the world. And so there is a lot to unfold there, because there's a lot of oppression that took place in that side of the world. So there is a lot to, and I don't want to be, because there's a lot of this divine idiots like Thomas Williams out there. Oh, nothing can it be? Oh, I heard the doom, nothing can it be? The females. Oh my God. He was telling me, Lily, I'm going to tell you something. When on that time when I was talking to him, and he said, Lily, is that true that nobody can, there was rumors about Russian female KGBs. I'm like, what rumors you talking about? So he was like afraid of that. I mean, that guy is a retard. Is scamming the world, and it's unbelievable. And so to listen to somebody who say, oh, let us KGB, it's just You know, we're so past that for someone who claims to be universal counsel. They would still divide people by nation, by who did what in the past, did or did not do, or accused of doing, or who play what role, and who did the abuse to who abused who for first. Usually with them, it ends up they're sitting there and trying to figure out that question. Was it a chicken or the egg that crossed the road first? Was it the chicken or the egg that crossed that road first? That's the question they're going to try to figure out. Yeah, because he's afraid of women. Because he's scared. He needs diaper. He's so afraid of everything because look what he's doing. Look at what his actions are, of which he should be afraid. All right, Natasha, you brought up here Orthodox Christianity right now. I showed you guys that priest. It was Orthodox Russian priest that was abusing that baby at christening. Okay? They're retarded, just like the rest of them. And so they're pushing out of desperation, Natasha. Out of desperation. This is what they're doing. Because there is nothing else. It's gotta be something, something that hasn't been used before. It's gotta look like it's something different, right? So like I said, because all day the technostrand people, technostrand that are stranded in their technology, stranded, genetically stranded. I don't know if you understand that meaning of that saying. But anyway, so I know it's just like you gotta let those people be. I mean, scum is scum. They're gonna keep scamming, and then they're gonna keep trying to, come up with all these excuses and everything, just so you can give them the money. But money will fix everything, right? And just give us money, and then that's what it is. Like Russian Orthodox Church is involved in selling, in the business of selling weapons. Congratulations, Christians. Way to go. Yeah, I mean, that video was freaking child abuse. It is. It's just because this is what I talk about, the abuse, and that's why even today I want to honor my dad, and then I want to talk about, it's almost I want to free his memory because the abuse that he took all this time, and all I know about, and all these years have passed, and you've passed on at 102 just 2 years ago. So it's not like I'm sad or I'm missing him, but what he's gone through, the kind of gulag abuse that he's gone through, the kind of mind uh, uh, he lost count how many times he's been dead and keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. One time, 16 hours. From the time he was pronounced to be dead, covered with the sheet, 16 hours passed. He woke up. So that was my dad. Can't kill him. Couldn't kill him. So we were laughing at that thing when he was dying, that, so just wait. You don't know. Let's wait at least 16 hours. But it was, He was gone this time. But the reason he was gone is because they took the organ that actually allows the spirit to anchor in the body. And this is the thing that yanks the spirit out. So but that's for that's very deep hermetic principles. This is what I talk about when I talk about the three glands in our, and this is why so much mind control. People talk about mind control, but nobody talks out there about, and this is probably, in honor of my dad, I'm going to talk about how actually mind control works. It's because, and by the way, he comes back with memories too. When he comes back from, used to come back from dead during that time, in all of that stuff. But what was I talking about? Oh, so and it has to do with the three glands, the Holy Trinity, the three glands in our head. The pineal is just one of them. There is thalamus, and the other one, pituitary pituitary gland. So there is also another thing where how the spirit and body infuses together through certain things, and how the glands are that sort of that fusing. I can't come up with any motor or that apparatus in the body that actually fuses spirit or aids in manifestation of thoughts, original thoughts. Okay, so this is how, like, your original thinker create that original thinking, original intelligence, higher intelligence, or this is how it anchors in the body. And this is why that Holy Trinity thing, they're all looking for Holy Trinity, but they want to steal it. And literally, as you might know, how the very negative side, that because it's anti-life force that requires somebody else's force to live on, to sustain itself on. So they'll literally the gland, pineal gland, then is used. So that's why they worship it. In all of their satanic thing, they worship pineal gland. Okay? This is why. It's because of what it is. So this is why there's so much mind control, is because this is your this is like your manifesting this is your manifesting mind, right? So when it works properly through the living light expression, like a living soul. And so exactly. Yeah, quantum enlightenment. That's pretty much what it is, I guess. So yeah, the thing is, see, that's because I think of the things that glands produce and stuff like that. And so this someone who doesn't have that naturally, they cannot, because they're not not of that, they don't, there isn't anything. It's like a car without a motor. So you can pour an oil in it, right? I mean, the gas in it. What, you're gonna pour it underneath the hood, but there's no motor in it, Like, see what I'm saying? So with those people, and that's why when the opposite side, what they do, and they can only achieve their stuff through the breaking of the mind, through the mind control. And this is why I talk about mind control. And this is probably maybe even why I had the experience. I had the father that I had that went through this, all of that from being, all of that being brought up on the principles of this higher principles. He was raised until he was about 19. He was raised in like a there was a Russian see the Russian thing, the Tsar thing was he was the Tsar, like a celebrity. But then all this other they called different, and so that's my dad's side. So they go and they just start new worlds and new land and new settlings, and so they built everything around, and so they would build the church and settle in. So that whole thing, those churches that you see in Russia, those are usually like the first settling of the people that would come in. And so that was, and so what happened is they had this town that was theirs, and so then it was invaded. But he was raised in that environment, in that very respectful to nature and all of that. It had no sort of religion. Well, unless you can, Rosicrucians, maybe you can say that maybe they were of that sort of like, those Gnostics and of those type of people. Okay, and so as they went, so he was brought up, so he had a lot of memory, and then they take him, boom, into all of this, into gulag, and then and then the breaking of his mind started at the age of 19. And it didn't, and then, as you guys know, that for me, I follow and observe and watch what's going on with the mind control and the techniques, where, how, who is using them, and all of that stuff. Is probably because it is my passion, because I know so much about it, because I lived through it, I've experienced it. And then also, like I said in the beginning of this, by the way, I'm drinking water with sweet lime, sweet lemon, I mean. So in the beginning, I said that, but what kept me grounded in all this, so I can see how all of that operates, is knowing all of this and experiencing all of this, and then experiencing that actual healing. And this is why I say I'm going to look at this from a shamanic perspective. And that's why I talk about healing. I started talking about the healing aspect of awakening from the very moment that I came out publicly in 2014. So that's been all these years. It's been all about healing ultimately, because no matter what happens, ultimately, like I've said this story about my dad, he had to take action. He was the one who had to work hard to align his conscious mind to take care of the bees, so then they can in return realign what he couldn't. So he had to do what he needed to do first before the nature does what nature needs to do. And so trusting in yourself and doing your part then naturally restructures on quantum level, as I talk about, and then this is how it all unfolds, and then boom, it just happens. And that's why even in Bible it says healing can happen really quick. And so that's why ultimately, but the reason why I speak about this publicly, why do I put up with all of this nonsense, that all of this abused people themselves that protect their abusers out there, trying to, um, you know, like I talk about Thomas Williamson's out there, and, people like that, that they don't like the truth. They don't like me talking about healing mind control, because how would they be mind controlling people into giving them their money to all of their organizations that never so happens never have enough money to do something, it never enough money to do what they say they're gonna do, because when people are start healing, then they are not buying into that. So of course they're not interested in me talking about healing. But yet, this is the very reason why I'm still here talking about it, because that's the way to break out of the mind control, is to step on your own personal self-healing and trust yourself, and trust the inner self, and trust the God source that put you here, that it's still there, just like that seed remembers that it's tree. So when it's planted, it will grow into a tree. And so just in the same way, we can here, because my dad is an example of that. There is no worse example, or there is no worse mind control experiments that they've done it in Russian gulags. Yet he rose up from that. And this is why I say, whoever wants to, really wants to, he can. She can. I can. You can. Because I really wanted to. So that's why I'm here. And so this is why I talk about this. There's nothing else for me to. This is why I keep saying that there is healing. Just need to trust ourselves, and we need to return to the nature of ourselves. And this is what ultimately my dad came full circle, ultimately, just kind of to return to himself. At that age, he's been dead so many times. And with all of that mind control and all of the experiments and all of that stuff and everything, and almost dying in the famine thing, again, like not just malnutrition, this, that, injuries, I'm talking about all kinds of things, still lived to be 102. Why? Is that because he trusted that the Spirit of God is still there. It doesn't matter what his body took, what happened to his mind, what happened to that's there, as long the spark of Spirit of God was within him. That was enough. That was enough for him to get up in the morning and be the happiest freaking guy in the whole world. You know what I mean? It was enough. That spark, that breath, it was still there. That means that God was giving him still the breath every day. And that's what he was grateful for each breath. And it took him all the way, that each one breath took him all the way to 102. But that's on paper. He's older than that. That's just on paper. The communist gain stocking, they had him, and he had said it, like I said, that communist Christianity that is still here followed in America, and you know reasons why. They brought all of those, that think abusing children is in God's nature. Thank you, Comfort. So yeah, it's just it's weird because I can talk about my dad all day long. um there's just so much wisdom and so much I've learned from him, as how, but I also learned, like Natasha, you said, gain stalking and all of that, and how they abuse him. They also like made fun of him and all of that stuff, for being just healed. Actually, once he healed and he stopped having all the angers, and he stopped acting like all the rest of the abused was acting, in all of their anger and beating everything around them, and abusing animals, treating animals, and all of that. And so, but he wasn't doing that. He was like, would love every leaf, because it was life. He enjoyed it. And so, those people, after he healed, um, well, they still use him for to solve all of their problems. They would always come to him, no matter what. But they would say, "Oh, he lost his mind." When he got healed, they would say he lost his mind. And this is what's going on today too in our societies, and this is what I see today with all this pharma and pharmaceutical abuse that people are on. They're sick, and they they're telling me they're on psychedelics, they're on antidepressants, they're on that, and they're telling me that I am the crazy one, that something's wrong with me because I'm not, taking pharmaceuticals in, this much every 3 hours or whatever. So it's just like it's your perspective. And so his perspective changed so much. And so I lived through that. And then so I knew my father then, and as this sort of, very wise man. And so I'm very grateful that I had, had this sort of, in a way, of protection. And he's the one who taught me things, and like in a sort of his own way. Like I said, like my grandma, he had even more, like he had even more, like I would things like he taught me. Like he would say, "Oh, look, Goliath had only one little rock. So what?" He was always keeping me up to, like, don't see it into such a like scary. So I could never have fear in spiritual world. There's nothing to fear, nothing to fear. It's just like, he's really, really, I give him so much of that fearlessness that he had in that age, in that wisdom age, and the fearlessness that he had. He didn't care who those people were. It doesn't matter, presidents, who, he didn't care. He didn't care. You know, he never. He was always fearless, and he always kept me fearless. And so and that's why, I owe so much of this fearlessness that I have to him. Because he so I I would do it. I would go and, I when that time was really small, and I had to watch the cows on the pasture so they don't go into other people's places and stuff like that. So I would just go around, and take a little rock. I have rocks everywhere now. And I would practice to throw a rock into a little spot that is about this much, about the forehead size, right? So just I know I'll pick a spot and say, okay, this is the spot, and practice, right? So, but I mean, it's just kind of his wisdom of teaching you how to, because he physically too, he, he's very fit, and always align your body because you are whole and wholeness. And he taught me of that, because, and this is why, you know, um, his health was sort of an indicator to him that he's not in alignment with the spirit. And so this is just as real Christians should know, as it says in the Bible. Hi, Ria. Hi, it's good. Hi, Ramas, too. Um, Great to see you guys here. So, yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. So, if you guys have questions, I'll take questions and stuff like that. But it's just, it's within me now. So I'm going to be carrying that wisdom. It's in my genes. So that's what it is. So, and this is why I talk about this. And this is why I bring this as an example. It's like with my dad, he did things that when he came here, he wrote this in 1993, and he actually put a lot of names in here that you weren't supposed to put. And so, a lot of, even in my family, people were not happy about it. And so, but he was fearless, and that's what I'm just telling you, that to prove it to you that he was fearless, and he said what he needed to say. And I certainly got the message. And all these years, I remember, because when I was young, and he was so old, so much older father than most of the kids that I went to school with. It was just like so unusual, um, that I was always like, worried that I'm not going to have so much time with him. So that's why I might have admitted that when I was little, that's why he would have all these meetings with all these people of different sorts. And they would discuss all this different, and I would just hide in, behind the couch or something and listen to everything. The reason for that, it's my phone, if you guys can hear the ringing. Sorry about that. The reason for that is because I didn't know how much time I would have with him. So that's why I spent a lot of time with him when I was young. He didn't even know, because I wasn't supposed to be there most of the time. So anyway, but that's okay, Amy. You said my dad definitely not that impressive or even reliable. Well, to be honest with you, some of the things in my dad's mind were still there, but it was still there, kind of running some of the programs. But I always kind of, found my way around it with him, and so, um, so yeah, my, of course, experience is very unique. But what I talk about is that, um, take look back, because it's your past and it's your experience, like with anybody in your past, any relationships, because like with my dad, I had like very, very good relationship. But not to say that my siblings did. Some of them completely didn't get along with him. He was very strong minded too. And so, and then, like, take my siblings, with some of them, I'm, they're they're just not that impressive to even, to even live up to what my dad, like my brothers, they can never live up to him at all, because that's just because maybe their experience was different or whatever it is. So it is like, positive, negative, and family and thing. But beyond that, the thing is, this is the key though, and this is what I think why I'm talking about my dad. And the key thing with him was he didn't look at life in a negative way. He always found positive in everything. And I know it's cliche and people will think, but it truly was the case in his case. It was the case. He always looked at the things and he would always find a positive and a good solution for any problem that would come his way. And it's just, he just always trusted that there is one, and then there always would be one. Um, he had that outlook, and some people don't have that outlook. Some people are not, like that. But not to say when he was younger and he was still under a lot of that effects of the mind control. So my like older siblings, they've experienced a lot of a lot of his years and him being mind controlled and all of that stuff. So, but again, and but later, even like some of my siblings, they never realize the kind of healing he received and why and how. They don't value it the way I do. My siblings, they don't value it the same way. So each and every one of our relationships with whoever it is, it's so individual to each and every one of you guys. So it's like, and even when you look at the past, and not to say, there wasn't like anything, we didn't have anything bad happening between me and my dad. There was a lot of things that was not, perfect. But what I say is what I choose to retain. That's the wisdom that of knowing that ultimately it's up to me what I choose to retain, the memory that I choose to retain. But most of all, it's completely up to me how and what I do learn and how I grow from the experience, and from the experiencing the relationships with all of this. And so to me, ultimately, I choose to retain the wisdom. I choose to retain all the knowledge, that he wanted to pass on, and all the history that he wanted to pass on, the true history. So this is what so I focus on the things that I want to retain. And so if with some people, this might be a much shorter, maybe it's just, um, something that I want to just retain a little bit, and then I will, whatever it doesn't need to be in my reality, that feeling of whatever they experience from the past. And this is what I think the Buddhists are saying, that of letting go the past, the same in the future, is just like, when I talk about intent, you can like intent, because you're doing that on quantum level. So you can only like allow your body to generate the feeling of having that, or experiencing that, or whatever it is that you're intending. in your ritual or whatever it is that you do, and you can't project it like, okay, it has to be this and that, like a visually or anything, because then it's just wishing with your conscious mind. It's not intention. It's not pure intention. And so what I choose to retain in that field, in the living Akashic record, then about my dad and my father and all of that, is I retaining then whatever I'm restructuring that, and then I'm seeing this as this gift that my father gave me, in which way this genetic gift of knowing um, a far, far, far past, the way, so now I can access it. So then I can also access the future, of like, I don't know how to explain this. So then it's all kind of, centered. I don't know how to explain that, but anyway, 45 minutes. So when I talk about, so I choose to retain, meaning retain the living memory of the wisdom of all of the knowledge, all of his experience. So I don't have to go through all of the mind control experiments, and I don't have to go through the KGB training, to do all that stuff and all of that, because he's gone through all of that. And so now, from him sharing plus conscious mind sharing, now that is in my ancestral, that's my ancestral experience. Okay, so this is why I say this is what I retained, and I retain this knowledge, and this is what it's retained within the living record, which is your DNA, your genetic code. That's the living experience. Then it's because it affects the past, looks into the future, it comes through you. And so now, retaining that experience with my father, that I um, for almost 50 years that I've experienced him, and when I was young, I spent a lot of time with him, and all the time, because I thought I'm not gonna have that much time, but life is beautiful, and I got a lot of years with him. And so he shared a lot with me, and so I learned a lot from him, uh, about different things. And then I observe a lot. And so I'm very grateful to everything that is, because once you see that, how that experience eventually, because when you're going through your personal journeys, unfolding your shamanic personal journey, and a lot of times, once you choose to see your past experiences as that, you look at the richness of your experience, be it a negative or a positive, and choose to draw strength from it. Because in a lot of times, what happens in your shamanic journey, you have to dig deep into your deep, dark stuff. And knowing that your grandma has been through, even think of it in this way, that someone here in your heart, because it's your grandma or your mother, or them in your heart, and they lived through it, and they survive, and they not survive, they overcome something. And this is that inspiration from within then comes through when you choose to retain the wisdom of your ancestors. And I know that a lot of people look at the history to blame the history. And trust me, there's so much blame that can go around. But what I've been focusing on ever since 2014 is actually the healing that we need to take on. and leave the blame thing around. But of course, people that do evil stuff, no, they're not going to be left alone. You know what I mean? Um, this is not what I'm saying. I don't want to be misleading anybody, that, they're not in trouble if they're being serving anti-human agendas. It's just not going to happen. But what I'm saying is we need to focus on how to use that negative experiences or whatever that is that we're lived through. And sometimes in your individual, because like I said, it's kind of like you got to do this on an individual level. The very idea of healing was hijacked from human consciousness to that extent. Yeah. Right, partial artificial and fragmented of the real. Yes. See, Remus, because of all this, because what happens is, think of it this: when there is an anti-life, or when there is a parasitic structure that depends on humanity being on that level, that is on level the levels that's producing the food for the parasite. Just like, I give an example. Hi, Natasha. Hi, darling. So glad you joined. I love. Okay, so when you parasite, right? So it makes you want to eat sugar. So what it does, and this is what you talk about, it hijacked that subconscious. They hears your symbols. Why is New Age religion and people in there use these two-dimensional symbols? The reason why, the simple question, the simple answer is because there is basically a feeding and parasitic structure or an entity that is attached to it. That's its feeding tube. This is a food processing thing. Think of it this way. So it can process because it needs food in two-dimensional form too. Oh, okay, that's why you have to believe that the power lies in that, on that piece of paper, like I was showing last time. So this is how obviously that this system. So when you stop eating sugar, right, the parasite in your body is gonna create little chaos. You're gonna have a headache. You're gonna have all kinds of things go wrong. And you're gonna feel like you want to throw up and all of that stuff, because now parasite is in distress and it's gonna give you all kinds of things. So you're talking about, and the natural became twisted and replaced with artificial. And of course, and here's an example for you here in America, and what happened to cannabis. And what happened to, I'm not even, okay, cannabis, but hemp. They outlawed the whole hemp in 30, whatever, I don't know. Just now, 2018, with the Farm Bill, finally legalized hemp here in America. And that was used for medicinal purposes, naturalists. That was, who did it? Pharma did it. That was the invasion of pharma of the United States. And so what they do is they fragment nature. So they're trying to replace nature then, right, with their pharmaceuticals. Trying to replace nature. But how they do it, they invert it, like I said, inside out. And then it serves as a sort of a feeding tube to the, but it's basically, it eats at the life force of the cell in a way. I don't know how to explain, because it's just kind of like eats at the life force, but into two-dimensional form. So it's like you have to chew it up for it, and all of that stuff. And so, This is why it become, and so then they say, okay, well, here's just like with, let's say, cannabis was used for to heal a lot of things, and doctors actually used it. It's over 150. Um, it was listed over 150 diseases that could be cured with cannabis. In those days were listed in the medical journal or whatever. I'm not sure I'm using the right words here. But anyway, so, and then they tell you, okay, here's this artificial pill will do what that couldn't do. And then we have what, 50 years of that, and where are we? Sicker than ever before. So, and yeah, and so, but this is now, so this is the fight. JP, you said GMO, unfortunately a lot of it is Monsanto. Yeah. Amy, what do you think about us creating a space force? We'll see how the space force does. We'll see how they're, so far they're doing good. Actually, I told you what that, guys, is all about. It's about the satellites and that silent war that's going on right now. But I'll talk about it when I have more. Okay. So so you're right. Yeah, JP. And so a lot of that is, the fight is still on, just because it was legalized, it doesn't mean that, the good people won, because actually who holds all this stuff? And even as I talk about, it's legal. Cannabis is legal in a few states for years now. And the kind of corruption that's going on with the taxes that they make, and where the money go, it's, you guys will, oh my god, heads will explode when people find out where that actually goes, because who holds that? It's just the same stuff as with um all this patents, the same system operating, that it's legal. So that's what happens when you legalize mafia. You just operate in the open. So yeah, it's still a big fight here. So I'm not saying it's been won. There's way a lot to do, and a lot to go and clean up, and a lot of that. But you guys, it's just every experience, every relationship in your life, if you choose to retain the wisdom, or retain the best out of that experience, and retain and hold that power of that experience, and direct that, be it a negative or a positive. And this is what shamans can navigate. You can navigate that energy for the purpose of creation, be it a negative or a positive experience, no matter what experience it is. It's totally up to you to navigate how you use that to create your future. And this is what ultimately I wanted to say about my experience with my father in this incarnation, that there's so much of my future that I am manifesting is because I choose to retain of so much of the wisdom from the experience with him. So I hope you, every one of you here that join me, thank you so much for joining me in this sort of casual talk, remembering how much actually he did taught me of the spiritual world. Is just unbelievable. And you guys, I wasn't there right next to him, but I knew exactly what was going on minute to minute. Unbelievable. it was just a beautiful, beautiful thing, and he is definitely a part of the whole now, and I do have access to that wisdom at any time I want because it runs in my blood. So I'm grateful for being such a powerful, for having such a powerful example in my life. It's just incredibly powerful. So I'm in so much gratitude to universe for um giving me the experiences of this incarnation, you guys. It's just, it's a weird one for me. I think it's really weird one time a gypsy, I was a little kid, I don't know, maybe like 9 years old or something, and she grabs my hand and she looks at it, she's like, oh my god, how many lives do you have here? And then, so yeah, I did follow in my dad's footsteps. I've experienced also a good few near death experiences too. So um, I kind of, so I know how to reach, to that, and feel safe, and I feel always protected, and that's why, and a lot of you are out there, wishing me protection because of the subjects that I talk about. And I will just tell you that um, my Father in heaven protects me at all times. There's not one second, not a split second, where I don't feel the presence of true source light within me. So I'm always protected. So thank you, everyone. And I thank you so much for being here listening to my rants, everyone. So until next time, be safe, everyone. And just, um, enjoy the wisdom that your family and your grandparents, your parents shared with you, and let go with things that don't serve your best purpose here, and let's bring the future that all of our ancestors wished for us. So, peace and love and creation and joy to all of you. So, love you, everybody. Bye, everyone.